Ladies and gentlemen, it is me, Soul, back again. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Sessions. I have me with Mike Herman from Retrosoft Studios. They are the creators of RetroMania Wrestling. Mike, how you doing, pal?
Great, Ben. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, no worries, man. Great to have you here. So, well, first of all, explain to our viewers who might not be familiar with this great retro game coming out. What is RetroMania?
So, RetroMania Wrestling is a throwback arcade wrestling game to like the 80s, 90s style of games that I grew up playing and I really always loved. And I wanted to do kind of a revisit the past and put my own spin on things and add some stuff that I always thought was missing from those games due to either the developers not doing it or just technology changing. The memory limitations gone now in the year 2022, right? So it's just a great, fun to easy pick up and play, fun arcade wrestling game.
Yeah, I mean, it is great. I mean, I've picked up as well. I'm playing on my PS5, and I've actually just had a blast with it. Can't take it down. It's just all these great classic styles. The whole art style is great. The arenas look great. Even the wrestlers themselves got this whole digi style. It's real. Takes you back to the arcade sort of style. You come in and you look around, and it catches your eye. The vibrant colors and art style. What was the aim goal that you wanted to go with that retro art style? What was it?
Yeah, I think that really I always loved pixel art, and granted, I still play modern games as well. So I'm not, only pixel art games, but it's that kind of art style that I've always loved and I think has really held up well. If you go back and look at like some early PlayStation 1 games, for example, the first 3D polygon games didn't really hold up too well. But even today, though, like if I go back and play NES games, the good ones at least, the art has held up. Like Super Mario Brothers, still a classic. It's 2D pixel art, and there's a lot of games like that have just held up over time. And I just always have really loved that game. And my favorite era probably is the 16-bit, like Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, as it was marketed to you guys. And the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo that was my kind of heyday. The Mega Drive was my console of choice growing up as a kid. So I always loved that art style, and I wanted to do a game. And unfortunately, we never got a great port of WrestleFest, the arcade game, into the home consoles. We had Super WrestleMania and Raw, and we didn't even get Wrestle War here in the States, which is a real cool looking game. So, there are some great 16-bit games, and I just wanted to do one myself.
Well, hey, that's it. And let's I would have my hat on, tip our hats to Wrestle War. What a classic that is in itself. Let's speak about, before we go more on to Wrestle, yourself in game.
Well, it started really, I want to say like 2010, 11 time frame. So we're going on 10 years of this project. Initially, it was I wanted a remake of WrestleFest, and that's all I wanted to do. So I found one other programmer, and we started doing some stuff. And then it kind of, with anything, if it's just a hobby, you'll pick it up for a little bit and then maybe put it down for a while. And we weren't really getting any traction. Fast forward back now, 2017, beginning of 2018, I said, all right, am I really going to do this? I'm in my 40s. It's now or never. When am I going to start it? I want to do it now. And I decided, let me hire a legit, game programmer. My background, I have a degree in software engineering, but it's all my experience has been on business software. So I've never really coded a game before, and I did start doing this myself. The first thing the lead programmer that I hired did was throw out the code I did. He's like, "Yeah, it's great. We're going to get rid of that though."
There's all that work gone. Yeah. All right, okay, let's build up and let's keep going.
Yeah, so final, but really, to answer your question the short way, I was sick of waiting for somebody else to make the game I wanted to play myself. Like I'm a big Fire Pro Wrestling fan as well, so it does have that 2D gameplay mechanic, but it's more of a simulation. And I was looking for something with quicker matches, pick up and play style action that just moved significantly quicker than what Fire Pro did. I still love Fire Pro, but this is a different game than Fire Pro.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I played Fire Pro as well, and I can definitely tell, hey, it's not a carbon copy. They are completely different identities in their own, for the better, because if you look at Retro and you look at Fire Pro, they're different, but they're both great. They bring something new to the table. So speaking of Retro, we've got the multiple game modes within the game. Let's talk about the story mode. Obviously, your protagonist is Johnny Retro, formerly John Morrison, John Hennigan. How did that come about?
So, we reached out to John, Mike Archer, who worked with me on the licensing part of the game. Had a previous contact where he used to work at WWE, so he had John's contact info. We reached out to him, but it's a funny story with John is we were almost ready to part ways. There were some differences in the contract of how we wanted to do around marketing the game or whatnot. Really minor stuff. So I emailed him once. I'm like, "Thanks for your time." I go, "Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to work this out. Here's the artwork we were going to use, just so you know." And he responded to me like immediately and says, and this is like probably 1 a.m. And 1 o'clock in the morning. He was on the West Coast, on the East Coast, so it was a 3-hour time difference. He's like, "Hey, I just saw your email. Can we talk?" So we got on the phone and just talked for maybe 15 minutes and talked through the differences, and he signed. It's just really, it was one of those things where you can't really get the full understanding of an email. Sometimes it's just word. It's cliche, but it's just words on a page. It coming out of someone's mouth, and I guess he was able to feel me out a little bit in those 15 minutes to make himself comfortable with signing with us. Because remember, we had never done a game before. We're a brand new company. I had zero track record of doing games. So he didn't know me. He was going on basically what Mike Archer said, and he had a good relationship with Mike, but he didn't know me. I was the one running the project. So it just took us 15 minutes on the phone to work it out, and he signed. So it was awesome. We got him right before he went back to WWE.
Oh, perfect timing as well. I mean, it just shows you that sometimes you just got to take a chance on the new guy and look what it's worked out to. It's worked out to a pretty solid game. And the story mode as well, it's something in itself. A lot of references to like Meltzer's in there and everything. What was the idea of building the story mode? Did you just think keep it grounded, or did you think, nah, screw it, let's just WCW 2000 this thing?
Yeah, I mean, really. So a guy by the name of Sal Payne, who is an author and he's a professor, he had sent me I'd reached out to him about writing a story for the game. He sent me this little short story he wrote that wasn't about Vince McMahon, but it was a character based off of really, he got some inspiration from it. It's an unpublished short that he wrote, and I loved it. And he had a lot of funny humor in it, and it worked out really well. And I'm like, "Hey, do you want to write the Retromania story for me?" And initially, we had a lot more advanced stuff that we wanted to do with it, but it was already taken. We were already a small studio, and I had like, the saying, your eyes are bigger than your stomach when you're really hungry and you want to eat. We just had to put in what we could, but it came out really well. He really knocked it out of the park. It's kind of a simple story mode to get you through the different modes of the game, to expose you to things you may not be exposed to if you were just pick up versus mode in it. And the humor, the subtle nods, like you said, to the Meltzers, and there's some other actors in it, and just a bunch of other references in there that if you're a wrestling fan, you'll really see the subtlety of some of the humor in it. It's pretty funny.
It is pretty good. Oscar worthy, or Slammy worthy, shall we say. We'll go for that one. Was there a particular part in the story that you looked at and thought that works so well?
Well, my favorite, I can pick to like a specific like line of the dialogue where it's coming off of one of your matches, and it goes to Hollywood Nova saying it was an infomercial gimmick. I don't know. It didn't really work out that well. And it was that was the end of a statement of him talking to somebody. And for those his Simon Dean character, no one else would have really picked up on that. But it was really funny. He thought it was pretty funny too. When I said, I'm like, you weren't annoyed, because I've since met him at a convention, and I was like, you weren't annoyed at that? He's like, dude, not at all. It was awesome. He's like, good job. So that was kind of probably my favorite line in it. But any of the little things that came out, I really liked.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the roster is great. You got the BWO in there, and Brian Myers, Colt Cabana as well, Hawk and Animal, obviously the Road Warriors. Talk about getting like Hawk and Animal involved. Obviously, this game came shortly before Animal sadly passed away.
Yeah, so we signed they were the first people we signed. So initially the game was going to be based on YouTubers, like YouTube personalities. There's a lot of like retro gaming YouTubers that I've been watching for years, such as the Game Chasers, John Riggs, John Hancock, the CU podcast guys, Pat and Ian. So I've been listening and watching their guys' content for years, and I was really the idea of signing actual wrestlers was a little overwhelming for me. I didn't know any wrestlers, where I didn't even know where to start. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what, let me reach out. And I finally got in touch with Animal through like one of these third-party booking agencies, mm-hmm. and was able to sign them, and it just was a lot easier than I thought. So then it came down to, kind of navigating who was available, who wasn't under like WWE Legends agreements or didn't have the rights tied up somewhere else, and who could I afford? You know what I mean? Because some of the bigger name guys that I would have liked, I couldn't really justify spending the money for them. Some of them were worth the money they were asking. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't afford it. But some of them I didn't think were worth the money they were asking. So I had to, politely walk away from it. Mm-hmm. But I think we have a very kind of eclectic roster, I would call it, that spans, the Road Warriors down to our Indie Mania winner, Warhorse. You know what I mean? So he's a popular independent wrestler. So we wanted to kind of mix in different eras of wrestling and a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, it is definitely spans a complete broad as well of different styles of wrestlers, different gimmicks as well. It is very good. If you had AAA budget, what's one megastar you would get for the RetroMania?
It's hard to, I would say, Sting would have been awesome. If you throw out any WWE licensing, Sting, obviously, The Undertaker would rate. Hogan, Piper. I would have loved to have recreated Hogan, Piper, Mr. T, and Mr. Wonderful from WrestleMania 1. And put that on the cover. I think that would have been great. If budgets and licensing were no issues, that would probably be one of the coolest things. Because that's kind of nostalgia grab for me, going back to my childhood. That I started watching right before WrestleMania. I was 10 years old, 10 years old, and that's when I started watching it. So I remember vividly the build-up to WrestleMania. And at the time, I didn't know it was a work. So I'm like, Mr. Wonderful and Piper just beat up some guy in the streets, It's like, and it's just fresh off of me watching Rocky 3 with Mr. T in it and Hulk Hogan in it, with Thunder Lips. So that time frame has a special meaning for me. I remember growing up and that whole build up to WrestleMania, and I think that would have been pretty cool to have those four in it.
Oh, that would have been something as well. Let's go on to the arenas, because I really like how the arenas look. They've all got their own personality in essence. You can feel behind them. My favorite one is the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast arena.
That's a great
Brian Myers and Matt Cardona. How did that come about, including their podcast logo and stuff?
Yeah, so they got released, like, I want to say April of 19. Mm-hmm. I want to say they got released, I think, and we jumped on them. And I was debating, when should we contact them? They just got released, like literally the day. And I'm like, you know what? If I got let go from my job, I would be happy getting offers for anything the same day. I think it would make me feel wanted. It would make me feel like, oh, I do have a fan base, and they obviously do. I don't know. And I don't want to put words in their mouth. They didn't say this to me or think this at all. But I'm just thinking, you know what? Screw it. Let's reach out to them right away. The worst they can say is no at this point. And they were really easy to deal with. And I said, and I had already had these ideas because, I thought they were a great fit because of the Wrestling Fig podcast. Mm-hmm. They were already big into that retro scene already. And I just thought kind of mimicking an old toy wrestling ring would be perfect for an arena for them.
That was smart.
We used your logo, and they're like, absolutely. And we did it, and they loved it. So, and I actually had some posters printed out for a convention that we were at, and I got Matt was in town at another retro toy convention. I stopped by and he signed some for me. He's like, you got to send me some though. So I mailed him some so he wouldn't have to travel on the airplane with them.
Oh, how consider? Yeah, because it's like an old LGN figure ring. It's just perfect. Well done, my friend.
Came out awesome. Our artist, Corey Annis, was the artist, our environmental artist on it, and he just has done a phenomenal job in all the arenas.
They are good. And besides that, obviously my favorite one. What's one of your favorite arenas?
I do like the Too Many Games and Retropalooza kind of video game convention themed arenas. Because again, it goes back to that whole YouTube idea I had. And this is where I was able to give a nod to a lot of those guys. The ring changes with their logos on it if you hit them on the sides of the tables. So I do really like those two. But I love the Blue World Order. arena. And I know it's a lot of blue, but I love the way we did the Titantrons that are around the ring and moving with all their images.
Mm-hmm.
I just really loved it. And I've gotten to know those three guys a little bit, so that's part of the reason too. All three of them great guys, and it made me, it made it real easy to work with them, and they just got a good kick out of it.
Yeah, it is nice with the shading of blue and everything. It's not too overpowering. It actually settles in well, and it's a nice in the eyes as well. Let's speak about Nick Aldis and what he brought in. Obviously, at the time, Nick was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and you can defend this title as well in the game. So how was that? Was that through Nick, or did you speak to the NWA directly about this?
Yeah, Nick was through Nick, but we did have the NWA first, and the way the NWA works is not the same as the WWE. So we couldn't the NWA couldn't sign Nick's rights to us. We had to go to Nick directly. But yeah, we worked with somebody who works with Billy Corgan pretty tightly at the time. We reached out to him. He signed the contract with us to be able to use the NWA logos, the rings. I love that. That's I'd be amiss to say I don't love the NWA arena as well. The studio, when they brought back NWA Power didn't exist when we signed them, so they hadn't even started their initial season of the NWA Power show. And as the day they did, I sent it to Corey, our artist. I said, "You got to remake this exactly like it is in our game." And a week later, we had it in game, which was awesome. But yeah, but since we signed the NWA, I'm like, well, we got to get Nick. We have to sign Nick to it. And Nick was awesome. He did a ton of promotion for us when we launched with II Arcade on that platform. He went on their show and really promoted it, did a remarkable job. And Nick's just been awesome, from a social media standpoint, retweeting anything we put out there with him involved. So it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, it must be, feels like a joy as a wrestling fan to have the prestigious title of the NWA in your game.
I grew up before. I mentioned I grew up in the WrestleMania era, kind of when that first started. But the first wrestling I watched was Jim Crockett Promotions. So that was, the NWA was what I initially watched, and I always liked the more, I'll call it wrestling, whereas I would say WWE at the time I was 9. It was a little more cartoony, but I still loved, at 1 o'clock, Channel 17. Anybody who is from the Philadelphia area near me knows 1 o'clock, Channel 17 was Jim Crockett Promotions Worldwide Wrestling, and I never missed it. So it was really cool to have the NWA title in there.
Yeah, it must be as well. And going on to my favorite game mode as well with the NWA title, the 10 pounds of gold game modes. So for those not familiar, would you like to explain the 10 pounds of gold game mode?
Yeah, absolutely. So you pick one of the members of the roster, excluding Nick Aldis, because in the game he is still the champ in the 10 pounds of gold mode. And you pick a wrestler, and you basically go through the set. You have to win 10 matches to complete the mode. The arenas are fixed. You go through all 10 of the different arenas, but your opponents change every time you run through the mode. And there's different match types as well as you go through. So you not only have to win singles matches, cage matches, 3-way match, 4-way match, which is everyone tells me is the hardest match in the game, which it is. It can be a little frustrating, but we wanted to give some challenge in there. And then you have to win a 2 out of 3 falls match with the champ to win the title and then defend the title against them as well to complete the mode and roll the credits.
Yeah, it is a very good game, what I must say. It gives me sort of reminiscence of Mortal Kombat story mode as well, with how you would change the opponents. Was that sort of like an inspiration, or was there something else?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up on all those fighting games where you kind of had to run through the ladder and you would go through, and with Mortal Kombat, I played a ton of Mortal Kombat, and you'd select the ladder mode, and you'd have to basically go up the tower and defeat the mode. So we definitely wanted to put something like that in the game. And I did want, Nick did a great job on the voiceover work. So we kind of another little nod to WrestleFest, where you had the Legion of Doom give their little promo and call the gerbil face geeks was Hawk's famous line in that. But we wanted Nick Aldis I gave him nothing to go on. I go, we need a short promo for end of the game mode, and he gave me 2. and it was hard to pick which one because they were both amazing. So he did a great job with it.
Well, he's definitely done a great job. And I must say, Mike, you must also be someone who can see in the future as well, because you kind of predicted the next NWA champion in your game mode as well for certain players.
Yeah, Matt Cardona taking taking the belt away from the champ. Yeah, I mean, you never know. And, we make stars. We signed Chris Bay. He goes on. This gets signed by Impact. Warhorse makes a couple of appearances on AEW television. Johnny Retro gets re-signed by WWE after all. And Matt Cardona is a hardcore legend now. So, Retromania makes stars.
Yeah, so, hey, independent wrestlers, if you want to become a star, you know where to go, guys.
Yep.
So let's Chris Bay, actually, who recently is becoming a part of this roster as well. And I love what you're doing as well, free DLC. It's a great practice just within the game industry in itself. What was it like getting Chris Bay?
You know what? We did a little tournament. It's March Madness right now over here in the States for college basketball. And we had this idea where we do an Indie Mania tournament. And we wanted to put one independent wrestler in the game as well. So we created a bracket of 32 independent wrestlers, which was a big pain in the butt because we had to sign them all the contracts and make sure they would agree to be in the game if they won. So we had to get 32 wrestlers signed. And then we basically did a social media tournament where there were different things. They had to cut a promo. They had to get the most likes on some post or something like that. And Warhorse won it, but Chris Bay was in the Final Four. And I didn't know either of them actually before this tournament. The guy who runs our social media follows everything, and I don't follow it closely. I don't really follow much independent wrestling. I knew a couple guys. But I started being fans of several of the guys in that tournament and started watching them after the tournament. And Chris Bay was one of the guys that stuck out to me. I love his moveset. So I was like, dude, this would be awesome. He's like a living video game sometimes, some of the stuff he can do in the ring. And we reached out to him, super easy to deal with, and we signed him after Indie Mania was over. I go, I know you didn't win, but I'd love to sign you because, I'm a big fan now, and I just love seeing him. And we're ready to release. We're just about ready to release him. We're going through final testing. So hopefully very, very, very soon, he'll be in everybody's hands. We are playing with him internally. I've shown a couple videos online with him, and he's a ton of fun to play.
Oh, well, that's great. Really excited. A new addition to the roster. Was there anyone in that Indie Madness that you were surprised at, like the results not getting passed, or who got so far? Was there anyone that just caught you off guard?
Yeah, you know what? I thought RJ City was going to go farther.
Oh,
and he got upset pretty early on. But other than that, it's like every one of them had a pretty passionate fan base.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. We had the Heat Seekers who recently had an appearance in the Crockett Cup for NWA, and they were like, "Don't put us against each other," in it, which was cool because they're our team, and they were really pushing the tag team thing. So we did that, but I would say Simon from What Culture Wrestling got pretty far, and we thought he might win it because of his status in the wrestling community. So we were we thought he might take it all, but Warhorse, his fans behind him, and they pushed him through to the end.
Oh, well, I guess Simon Miller didn't get the thumbs up for that one then.
Right now, yeah, he got a thumbs down.
One thing I want to go back to with the titles, obviously, on your website it says that more further titles were going to come by. Is this still the plan, or are you going to go for NWA?
So we're working on a tag team mode now. Once we get this update, so one thing is we're not super quick in getting stuff out, and we are well aware of that. But we have really taken time over the past several months. Our last launch was in June, so we're 10 months now out from our last launch, almost, on IR Arcade. So once we were done that launch, the last 10 months we've been going through bug fixes, fixing animations, getting rid of stray pixels. But that's kind of the boring stuff. That stuff, like, to me, I really wanted to fix. I wasn't happy with. But on top of that, we've added a ton of other stuff. Granted, they're small little things, but things like just when you play a Retro Rumble, you can now get your opponents exiting the ring in other ways. So, for example, if I use Jeff Cobb's belly-to-belly overhead suplex, I can eject somebody from the ring now, which is really cool. when you do it. And we tried to add a bunch of other moves like that into the game where it doesn't happen every time, but if you do it and when it happens, you get a real good pop out of it. Things like more cage interaction. So that same move now, if you do it inside of a cage, you have a chance of throwing your opponent into the cage. So things like that, cleaning up animations. Adding another thing we've recently added was throwing your opponent back into the ring from the sides if you have them on the outside of the ring. And then just tweaking a whole bunch of other stuff to make the game, as more fun and just be able to do a little bit more and to give the replay a little bit more value there.
Yeah, of course. We don't want Cyberpunk 2077.
Right. But, with that said, this is a passion project, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep, we hope to do another game at some point, but the beauty of this day and age of video games, we can keep updating this thing. So we want to keep giving you, if you bought it a year ago, you're going to get a big update soon, and we are going to try to make our updates more frequently and not make people wait. Have a set kind of roadmap. We want to add these 3 things to the game, get them in, and then move to the next, so people aren't waiting as long as they have this time. But to go back to your original question, which was, are you going to add tag team belts or add additional belts in? We are working on the tag team boats. That's our next big update. Will be a tag team mode, similar to a 10 pounds of gold with our little twist on it. And that's kind of like, I always like playing through the Saturday night's main event version of WrestleFest, where you had to go through as a tag team. So it's similar to 10 pounds of gold, but we're going to throw in a couple union match types in it as well.
Not too shabby. Will they be NWA tag titles, or will they be your own creation tag titles?
Yeah, the NWA tag titles we'll be making.
Oh, nice. Very nice. They are beautiful belts then.
Yeah.
Trusted in your hands. So I want to go to the IR arcade thing, because that's an impressive thing in itself. I mean, I would love one, but shipping is a bitch. I ain't risking it on my wallet. Right. But how did that partnership go around? That must have been something special for you.
It was amazing. They reached out to us about putting RetroMania on their console, their big console, the arcade machine. And I said, sure, we can do it, but you got to make a RetroMania arcade cabinet for me. And I kind of just said it kind of tongue in cheek, like not really meaning it. I just thought we were going to put it on. We're like, all right, we'll do that. And I thought that was a great marketing tool for us, just because when you see a RetroMania arcade, not everyone's going to be able to purchase that arcade, but it's going to show, RetroMania, and then it's going to help us on all the other platforms that we're on as well. But I'll tell you, it feels at home playing it on an arcade machine. RetroMania, really its roots are in arcade wrestling games, so it just fits perfectly on the iArcade, and it's a really beautiful machine. It's real quality work, top-notch controls. The artwork on it is phenomenal. They did a phenomenal job on it, and they're great people at that company. Jung, the CEO there, is just a great guy, and they just, they're so passionate about what they're doing, and it shows.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen it on like some of the wrestlers' Instagram pages, and it does look like an absolute beauty. Do you think you ever might do maybe other alternate styles, maybe, or do you think you want to just stick to the one?
I'll leave that up to iArcade. I mean, I'm more for, I'm all for them doing that. They actually have a black edition where they don't put anything on it, where you can put your own stuff on it as well. So maybe we'll do some additional artwork or something. I would love to do it once we maybe upgrade our roster a little more. Get like Mr. Hughes and James Storm on there, 2 other guys that we're going to be releasing probably this coming year, and maybe some, who knows, down the line. Who knows who else?
Who knows? Who knows what's sprinkled in the future for the Retromania? I want to just quickly touch upon female wrestlers. Will we see maybe them down the line, or are we just basically just going as we go and see how we go?
So it's not I'm against it. It's just it's more of a budgetary thing. We'd have to do all new artwork models for it. So right now, the way our art pipeline works, we have 4 base male models. We'd have to create at least one, but really to do it right, we need 4 female, different body size, body type models on there, and then draw it from there. And these are all hand-drawn 2D pixel art sprites. So we'll see. I'm not ruling it out, but it's more of a financial question to answer more than a whether or not I want to do it. If we do
Oh,
another game, it'll be 100%. That's on the top of the list. It won't get overlooked for the next. Not that it was overlooked this time. It was always a budgetary reason, but we'll definitely. It'll be a more of a priority on another game.
yeah. I think sometimes people who play the games don't understand the budgetary restrictions. There's
Right.
things you want to put in, but just with money, you've always got to just dream big, but then
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. There's a lot of other things that got cut too that I would have thought would have been really cool to do, but we'll see. We'll see. You never know for a game too.
If you were to do it, would it be a sequel, or would you like to maybe do a spiritual successor?
It would probably be more of a successor because we're going to keep updating this style of game, so it would probably be a different gameplay mechanism. We change things up, do some different things. I think I'm very proud of Retromania, and it really hit on the style of game I wanted to make. We can still improve upon it, and we're going to do that with updates. It depends. If we get to a point where there's a bunch of things that we just can't do because we have engine limitations at this point, then maybe we'll do a true sequel. But otherwise, I would like to do another wrestling game, but just a different take on it. Maybe something else.
Yeah, by different take, you mean maybe go for a 3D art style or an anime art style, or just maybe mix up.
I don't know. Well, it's up in the air still. So definitely something different. I am partial to pixel art, but we'll see. Because at 3D, there's a bunch of other players that are doing great work. In the 3D space. So I think we have a little bit of a niche in the 2D space. But who knows? Maybe more of like a 3D models in a 2D space, something like that we could do. We'll see. You never know. That's still here. We still got a little ways to go with Retromania, though.
Hey, there's always great things to come in the future. And you've mentioned the tag pound of gold sort of thing coming in. Other match types, I guess you've got down the pipeline as well for coming in. Maybe like Infernos or Extremes.
Yeah. So one of the guys that works with me, who does quality control now, has been harping on me to put blood in the game since it came out.
And how do you feel about it?
I actually think I got a look. I think we already have like a teen rating, so I don't think it would actually affect our rating if we did put blood in. And he's not looking for much, just a little bit. If you ran somebody's face into the cage or something, something like that. So. But yeah, maybe some more use of weapons. There's certain things that are a little bit difficult to do in a 2D match. One of the things I would like is like a double cage 2-ring match. Okay. I think the term for that match is copyrighted by somebody, so I don't think I can say it. But I would like to do something like that. The only thing is that we'd have to zoom out a lot to get 2 cages on the screen at once. So I'm not sure how it would play, but we'll see. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. And maybe some of the other gimmick matches that we saw back in the 80s, like coal miner's glove or something on a pole. Put something on a pole. Maybe put a manager above in the cage that if you win, you get to beat up the manager. Who knows?
Or how about put yourself on the pole?
We'll add some managers to the game as well that you can interact with a little bit.
Oh, nice. You should put yourself on the pole.
You get to beat up the creator of Retromania if you win the match.
What a match type that'll be. And I'm just gonna say something. I would love for you to get Matt Cardona to put the Internet Championship in Retromania.
Yeah, I remember talking to him about it, but he wasn't sure what he was going to do with that when he had first left WWE. So yeah, I should definitely revisit that with him because I wouldn't mind putting that in. I think that would be a fun addition for sure.
Oh, that would be very good, and I would happily defend that against all other members of the roster. And something wrestling video game fans love is one particular game mode, and I'm pretty sure you know the one I'm meaning. One that's made a recent return, General Manager mode. How is that something we could see in Retromania, or is that something you want to completely steer away from and do your own sort of thing?
I mean, that would probably be like, one of the things that we knew going in that we weren't going to do just because of the cost analysis that it was going to take to do was just more customization, specifically create a wrestler mode. And the reason being is the number of art assets to do it, especially in 2D. Like Fire Pro does it, but they haven't been completely reusing all the assets, but they've reused a lot of the assets through through the years, and they have all that animation work kind of done, and they've just kind of fine tuned it. And they've been in business. I mean, the first Fire Pro was what, on the PC Engine back in the 80s, early, like maybe 86, I want to say 87, somewhere around there. So we didn't do that. You know, I would love to do a GM mode, you know, a full-blown suite of customization tools where you create your own story, create your own angle, create your own stable, create your own wrestlers and everything. In order to do a GM mode right, I think you need all that other stuff in there as well. So that would probably be another game, but, you know, you never know. If we could do it in this one at some point, you never know. You know, certain games out there have a lot of longevity nowadays, because you look at like Minecraft's been the safe base, not that we're a Minecraft, but Minecraft's been the same basic game for how many years now? They just keep adding stuff to it, new features, little things here and there. So, you know, maybe we can just keep updating the game. Hell, I've been playing Diablo 2 again, and that game came out over 20 years ago, and I started playing it again. So some of these games have these long lives, and you never know. We could just keep building and keep adding onto it. So
Diablo 2, that's hitting the flashbacks now, man. Right. Jesus Christ. Do you feel like sometimes video game fans are just maybe a bit too hotshot in wanting sequels and all that, and not sticking to the original product that can be updated and given more longevity?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Everybody likes new stuff, you know. I mean, it's just our human nature. You know what I mean? There's always the new version. You're always looking forward to the sequel, and it's just, I think we're all do that. We're all guilty of that. You know, so I think there's certain exceptions to the rule, and I think, especially, you know, we want to do, you know, we're probably going to do some paid DLC, but we still want to do some more free DLC as well, and really give people the bang for their buck. So if you bought in early, you're still getting free updates. You know, it would be great to get a free update 10 years from now, as long as we can support the game. You know, we're already easily transitioned to PlayStation 5, as you alluded to earlier in the interview. We're on the latest gen consoles, and the way those consoles are coming out, there's no reason we won't be able to play on the next one. They seem to be more concerned with backwards compatibility now. So, you know, we should live on into the next gen.
Yeah, of course. I mean, speaking of that switch to gen, was there any issues that you ran into, or was it a completely seamless process?
Yeah, it was. We didn't do anything really. It was all the work was done by Microsoft and Sony. It just worked. Yeah, we did. Now, there's some certain things if we want to. There's some certain new features we could probably make use of in the next gen stuff. But, you know, being a 2D pixel art game, you didn't need to upgrade to a PS5 to play RetroMania. So, you know, with that said, you know, it was seamless. We didn't really do anything to get them playing on those machines.
Oh, that's perfect. And let's move from the home console to the PC Master Race, as some people like to call it. You guys are on Steam as well, and I think you're coming out for the Epic Game Store as well.
Yeah. So we were early adopters to their kind of new publishing program. So we are working on that now. Our engine is just getting to work with the Epic Game Store engine. So just like, you know, you have the Sony, Microsoft, and Steam, they all have their different versions of, you know, trophies / achievements. Epic has the same thing. So we're putting those into the game now. And we have, you know, and I'll call myself out on this. We had a glaring issue with the Microsoft Final Trophy on the Xbox. That's finally going to be fixed in this upcoming, where it was a problem with our engine. We had to rip out that trophy and create a new one, achievement, and create a new one for the Xbox players. And they are not happy with me, and I apologize to them, but it is coming very, very soon.
Oh, well, hey, patience is key. Patience is key. Will there be a little cheeky reference to it in the new achievement, maybe? Or
I think so.
Oh, nice. Well,
I don't want to make them madder than they already are, though. They're very passionate. I'll tell you, I was never huge in the whole achievement trophy thing until I made a game that had them. So then I naturally had to unlock everything. And I really, it adds another level to the game. You know, and the nice thing about it is, unfortunately, the Switch doesn't have it, but other versions, it kind of forces you to use all the characters in the game, check out all the arenas in the game that all our artists spent time doing, and maybe see some, you know, little Easter eggs throughout all those arenas that we have in there. And that's a nice thing about doing the achievements, and just but I can see how it gets annoying if the last one won't unlock. So we
Oh,
got you, Xbox people. We got you.
Xbox people, don't worry, you're being saved. You're being
Yes.
saved. Going back to the achievements and trophies, was there one that particular that you sticked out? Like, yeah, that was a good challenge.
Well, I think we had somebody do who was super big in the on the Xbox scene. He kind of came up with all of them. Some of them were the standard ones. Just like win the title with everybody. I liked kind of the five times because it's a reference to Booker T when he would say five times. And I thought he got creative with the naming of all of our achievements. That one stuck out to me. But they all are nothing too extravagant, super complicated. Again, the design of them was to try to get you to try all aspects of the game.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great because some people always just stick to the one thing, one person,
Right.
one matchup, one arena, but you really want to spread them out, and then you never know, they might find a new favorite wrestler because
Right.
someone might be like, oh, I'm a Nick Aldis fan, who's Warhorse? I don't really want
Yeah.
to touch him, but then you've got an achievement that specifies Warhorse, and it's like, oh, I'll try him out, and then hey, you're a new fan.
And you got to go to the Hell Arena to use them to unlock that achievement, and that's one of our cooler looking arenas.
It is a dandy arena indeed. Well, Mike, I want to say it's been a pleasure having you here on the Soul Sessions. Absolutely fun talking about this game. If someone wants to pick this up, where can they pick it up?
We are digital only currently in the Microsoft Store, Sony Store, the eShop on Nintendo, on Steam, of course, coming soon to Epic Games, and on iArcade. If you have an iArcade machine, we're on their connected store. Or you can buy the iArcade RetroMania cabinet. And then we do have a deal with Limited Run Games, and we will be doing a true physical release in the coming months. Once we release most of our DLC, they like everything done, but if we're going to keep working on this game, it may not be a final version. We'll see. We're still talking to them about that, but we already have a signed agreement with them. So it's definitely going to be coming to Limited Run Games soon.
That's perfect. Is it just like a standard edition, or is there a collector's edition?
Oh, I'm sure we'll have a collector's edition. There's a ton of stuff we can do in the retro wrestling or just the wrestling space in general. Maybe, hey, you never know. Maybe a tie-in with the Wrestling Figure Podcast would be very cool.
Well, it's better. I better break out the bank and savings then. I'm ready to be skinned. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure having you here, my friend, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, no worries. And remember, viewers, be safe and be kind to one another. Have a good day. Soul signing out.